Welcome to Inside Lake Forest Extra. Today we're at the home of Mark McMahon, a local resident artist in Lake Forest. We're here to learn all about his pieces of artwork. Let's step inside.
Hi, Eileen.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, I haven't had a Luby in the house in a long time.
Well, let's take a step downstairs because I want to learn all about the history of what inspires you and what you're doing today.
Okay, great.
Excellent.
Sure.
Well, Mark, I'm very excited about learning more about your artwork and the history of these pieces who are in our community.
Well, thanks for your interest in it, and I appreciate you coming over here and taking a look. I'm always a little surprised how interested people are in what we're all doing.
Sure. Well, just to start off a little history, your family moved here when you were about 6 months old.
Yes.
Is that correct? And they lived in a house on Green Bay and Cherokee. Then they moved to Mayflower, where our family history kind of gets a little intermingled there of our house.
That's right. When I think in the final bidding for the house, it was between the Lubys and the McMahons.
Give me kind of a little lowdown of who's doing what and what their, I should say, their specific art medium that they use.
Huey, he's a pumpkin carver by trade, and you'll see him on David Letterman, and you'll see him on Conan at Night, and see him on different shows like that. But what he just came out with is for Penguin Books, is a book called The Night of the Pumpkinheads. It's a kid's story.
Cool.
But the book's really done well. Debbie is doing jewelry right now and did fabric when she started out. And Margot does sculpture now on the lawn at St. Mary's. That sculpture's Margot's. At DePaul University, the big sculpture of Monsignor Egan is Margot's, and she just had one installed in Lincoln Park.
Neat.
A nice sculpture. My older brother, William Franklin, Mac, he was a photographer for Time magazine, and when we first got out of college and stuff, I would assist him, and he would do the Tribune magazine and things like that, and we'd go to all the great Aragon ballrooms and stuff, and he'd photograph all those through cheesecloth and stuff like that. That was really good. And then Patrick, he's a writer and a photographer and marketing guy for, and now he runs operations. That's what happens when you get older. Mary and Michelle, Mary's down in, where's Mary? She's in Washington, D.C., and she traveled all over the world with her husband because he was the finance guy for Texaco Oil. Okay. And then Michelle is a doctor of geology, and Randy's sort of our Red O'Dare guy who goes out and he's retired from his oil company, and now he's out stopping the big oil leaks out in the middle of the ocean. He runs those crews. Michael, he's the youngest. He did a lot of film work in Hollywood for a while. Super.
So let's talk about your wife. And she
Carolyn went to the University of Denver, and she went to the Dublin Art Institute, and she does sculpture. This is her sculpture here, one of them. And then we have a lot of her work around. She's also doing glass bowls. And she and Meryl are doing glass bowls together now.
And Meryl's one of your daughters?
Meryl's my daughter, oldest daughter. And then Drew does steel sculptures and also steel frames for some of my big oil paintings that I've been doing. And then there's Elise, and she's our youngest. She went to Rhode Island School of Design. You can spot her stuff on her website.
Mark, I'd love for you to show me some examples of your work. So let's take a look and talk about it.
Sure. The way that I work is I work on location. We just did some work in Barcelona, Spain, and I did the caves in France, where the cave drawings were done and things like that. And the way that I work is these are done on location. This is in the State of Illinois building. And this is Occupy Chicago outside the window.
Oh, sure.
Now, it's very complicated because here's Helmut Jahn's architecture and the Illinois Artisan. I was doing a demonstration, and it just was handy that the marchers came walking up to the window with all the police in the window. So I did the drawing, but what'll happen to this will be used in my latest sketchbook on Chicago that goes out through all the bookstores and things like that.
Now, is this pencil?
Yeah, this is a pencil drawing, and I sit it on my lap, and I just hand eye it. Great. What's going on?
Neat.
This is also a sketchbook idea that I'm going with. I'm doing the shed aquarium, And in the bottom of the shed aquarium, when you go into the shed aquarium, you run into the guy feeding the fishes.
Neat.
And I'm doing that work like that. And this will be the drawings used in my latest sketchbook on the shed aquarium. And then I'm going down there on Friday and I'll paint this painting at the shed aquarium right in the window there looking at the fish because I can't find their colors. This is the Crown Fountain in Grant Park, Millennium Park there. And this is Science of Industry. These are now. This is what you're seeing here. Is you're starting to see ideas start to happen, and then inside the Science of Industries is this drawing here.
Sure.
And what happens is you start telling stories and drawings. Well, then you end up with a lot of drawings, and these are the drawings that lead up to my public art pieces that are silk screened onto ceramic tile and then painted. But this is the way the drawings are done. Neat. And then from that, they go to paint.
Okay.
And this is the Clark wedding this December at the Gold Coast room at the Drake Hotel.
Wow.
And that's a painting that I'm just finishing up right now. And this is Mr. and Mrs. Clark. And that's the other couple's family, and then this is the couple having their first dance.
Wow.
But this is a drawing that I worked on for about 4 hours, and then as the people arrived to the scene, did the painting.
Neat.
And that will be delivered this week. This is how the paintings look when they start getting colored up. This is all the mothers bringing their babies out to the park that first day of spring, and then the monkeys' mothers bring their babies out, and they all go look at each other. And
is this watercolor, or what type of art medium do you use for the paint?
It's watercolor and acrylic.
Okay, and acrylic.
The first colors that go down are watercolor, and then you build on top of those in acrylic, and then you use watercolor again to knock it down, and then you build it up again in acrylic. So what it does is it goes back and forth. That's why the drawings sort of bend and things like that. And then you just stack a bunch, you got a lot of drawings, so I stack them up and that flattens them out.
Well, it's definitely an interesting process to learn about, Mark, too. The layers and the different types of art medium that you're using to create your work.
Well, all artists, what you do is you learn your skills, and instinctively, this is a family style that my father created by going on location and doing these drawings that way. And then what you do is over the years, it sort of becomes what you are, and it becomes your style, and you make your own adjustments to it. So when my father or I see these paintings, we know instantly who did it. His are really good, mine are a little shaky. But what happens is each artist goes into their own sort of look. And this runs close to the family style, but around the country this is known as a Chicago style.
It's your own.
It's a family grown style, but when I go to publishers in New York, they know this as a Chicago style and stuff.
Now, Mark, you also, I know you've got some more there, but you also have some other books and things. Can you show me also and talk about your work being featured like on the cover of Forest and Bluff?
Oh, sure. Well, what I do is I mostly work for corporations in the area, and I do a lot of, I do work for NASA, and I founded the Midwest Air Force Art Program, and that's where it sends artists around to cover subjects. So when you go to the Pentagon and you see those paintings on the wall, that's the kind of organization that comes out of. But when you go to Cape Canaveral or to see those paintings, or the Air and Space Museum, that's the NASA art program, and I'm a member of that. My work also is done for Chicago corporations, and this is one I'm working on right now for Abbott Laboratories. And this is for their 125th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
And this is all their buildings in the world. And this will be a 60 by 40 painting when it's done. Wow. But right now we're just making sure the buildings are in there. Right. And stuff. And the other day they told me we just sold that company, so I took that out of them. So, and then they're buying another one. So
I'll put it in there.
Yeah, so that's what you do. And then that'll be drawn up and done that way.
Neat.
I'm also assigned, my assignment is to the space shuttle for NASA. And the painting of mine that hangs in the Air and Space Museum, this is the one that was done in the morning, and the one that's in the Air and Space Museum is the one I did in the afternoon. And in the lower left-hand corner, there's a signature there. An astronaut walked by, and I said, "Hey, why don't you just sign that corner?"
Oh, neat.
There? So like that. And this is how that work looks in the different books. This is a book on NASA, and this is how that painting shows up.
Neat.
There's a couple hundred artists in America that have been assigned to go out and cover that subject.
Wow.
Now, my father, he covered Apollo, Gemini, and Saturn missions, so you would really see a lot of his work. I did the first launch of the shuttle, and he did the landing in California. And those both hang next to each other in Houston, at NASA Center and stuff.
Do you have any particular favorites?
The one I think is a pretty good one is I lived with a pit crew at the Indy 500 for Sports Illustrated. And I did a series on the race and the guys who work on the cars.
Neat.
Getting ready for it. Now, I wrote it also. I wrote the article for them, and I went into a whole series of things on the migration of the fans, early spring going down to Indiana and stuff like that. Well, the editor at Sports Illustrated got my stuff and said, "We'll go with the paintings," and he rewrote it. So.
Neat.
So that was a pretty good one. And then the next job I did for Sports Illustrated was I spent a week with the Medicine Creek Skunk Skinners and Beaver Trappers Association in the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, outside of Steamboat. And that was a good job too. I enjoyed doing that. And they did not run that story. I did it, and they never ran it. So
okay, interesting. So you've been in Forest and Bluff. You do obviously mark a lot of things with in the community. There's been your work featuring the Lake Forest Day Parade and many, many different things around Chicago. You showed us a few, and I just look around your home here, and there's so many more. Where can people find your work?
Well, if you live in, this probably goes to Lake Forest and Lake Bluff. If you go to the high school, when we moved back into town here, Dr. Metcalf called me and said, "Mark, we need a painting of the high school. Will you come over and do the painting?" And that was the first month we were back, I think. So I went over. I grew up with Bobby Metcalf, and so I'd known Mr. Metcalf, Dr. Metcalf, a long time. So I went over and did the front of the school with the field hockey team on the lawn.
Neat.
And then they made some posters of that. And then that's over a 25-year period, that's gone into the ceramic mural at the high school. It's gone into the swim team. It's gone to the football team. It's gone to all the teams and things like that. And so what happens when you're an artist and you sort of, artists are invited to become some fiber of the community, and you're just sort of nicely invited into things, and then you are nicely able to leave them and stuff. So you're going and coming all the time, but if your body of work comes together, all of a sudden you've told a story about the life there. And the high school mural is a story done by kids there about that, the life at the high school. That's good. And then I've done McDonald's and St. Pat's Church is my father's Stations of the Cross, and my mother wrote those, Irene Leahy McMahon. In the new church, Margot, my sister's work. So what happens is, over the years, we've sort of been invited to become a little bit of the fiber of the community.
And if somebody wants to purchase some of your work, a print or a sketch or a painting or books or things, where can they find you? Online? Do you have a website?
Yeah, we run our gallery. We had a gallery in downtown Lake Forest, and we took that gallery down when a mural job showed up down at Sears School. I have a mural there at Sears School in Kenilworth. but so we closed the doors of the gallery. We were going to do it for a year, but it went for 2.5 years. And then, so at that time, a guy, Andrew Lehman out of Evanston, came in, and he was selling an online retail.com. And I was sort of interested in that about 6 months before we closed the gallery. So we started designing the site.
Okay.
And now our gallery's online, and we do all our business online.
Great. And what's that web address? Is it?
It's McMahonArtGallery.com.
Perfect.
Like that. And then from that site, you can go to, we also have our works. Bill Gates has a company called Corbis.com, and we have 1,750 of our paintings on that site. And you can buy digital rights to publish those paintings by the publishers.
Okay.
And so we get quarterly reports on our sales. Most recently, what's the name of this singer? Joan, not Baez, but it was a folk singer. And Simon Schuster bought my father's rights to use of her mouth being closed by a policeman at the Chicago conspiracy trial, and they bought the rights through Corbis to publish it in her book called Judy Blue Eyes. Judy Collins was her name.
Mark, it's been such a pleasure interviewing you today.
Well, thanks for your interest.
Thank you. Yeah. Learning about your family's, art history here in Lake Forest and the members, and you and your wife and your kids, and how they've taken the talents and continued and be successful as well. It's been a pleasure.
Well, we're raising, grandkids are being raised in town, and we're having fun with that, and we're in our next phase of all that, and I'm off on projects like Barcelona, Spain, I've been doing, and the whooping cranes, and so we're always looking forward to the next storyline and stuff.
Neat. Well, thank you again, and I hope that the residents and homeowners of Lake Forest come and check out your work and come and meet you.
Well, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
They all come to the living room, and we all sit around, we have tea, and
Perfect. Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Thank you for watching Inside Lake Forest Extra. As you know, we've been visiting with the famous here in Lake Forest and around the world, Mark McMahon. And as he says, as all artists should, they should move onward.